Good.
Good.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, on your notes, if you've had a chance to look at the notes, you realize there are no blanks to fill in. It's just all printed information for you. So we're not going to read through every word on these notes. What I want to do primarily is just do a quick review if you've already read your notes. If you haven't read your notes, it's a preview, but I want to show you some photos of the places that we're going to be going on this particular, on some of these places here. Okay. So here's the itinerary. Let me show you this. Thessaloniki. Can you see my Thessaloniki Starbucks coffee cup?
Ah.
Yeah. We're going to talk about Mykonos. Here's Joanne's Mykonos Starbucks. With the world famous windmill. We'll see those windmills in just a moment. It's a wonderful little Greek island. You're just going to love it. All right, let's see. My screen sharing is paused. Why is it paused? I don't care. Okay. Okay, so let's take a look. Greece. Let's go here. You'll see on the map that this is the Mediterranean area, and I've named the 4 countries we'll be visiting in this region. And today we're going to focus on Greece. We talked a little bit about Israel. The next time we're together, we're going to be focusing on Turkey, and then and a little bit more for Greece as well. And then eventually we're going to finish up talking about Italy, Rome, and some of the things that we're going to be seeing there. But Greece, as you can see in the notes here, has a long and rich history. Greece was the first advanced civilization in Europe and is considered the birthplace of Western civilization. Greece has made many world-changing contributions to the global culture. So here's a pop quiz for all of you. What contributions to Western society did Greece make?
King Constantine brought Christianity.
Constantine did. Yep, he was the emperor in Rome, in Italy.
Olympics?
What's that?
Olympics?
The Olympics, yes. And the Olympics went back several hundred years BC. Started in what city?
Athens?
Olympia.
Olympia.
Yeah, not Washington, but Olympia, Greece. The modern games were reintroduced out of Athens, and you'll see the Olympic Stadium in Athens. We'll drive by it. You have a chance to see it. What else did they contribute to culture?
Mythology.
Mythology. Yep, they're different ways of trying to understand life through their variety of gods and goddesses. Good. You will see a lot of mythological carvings. When we go to Athens, and it'll be amazing, you will see actual carvings of the gods that the Apostle Paul saw. Remember, he said that the city was filled with idols. You will see the very idols that the Apostle Paul saw. Some of those buildings were standing when Paul was there. They'd been standing for hundreds of years before Paul got there, and they're still standing. It's crazy. Okay, what else did Greece, ancient Greece, contribute to modern culture?
Mathematical stuff.
Math, a lot of math. Yeah.
Pythagorean theorem.
Yep. Very good.
Yeah, the
All
Roman
that's
numerals.
going to be Latin.
Oh, that's Latin.
But there's something close to it, Joanne, the alphabet.
Oh, okay.
The Greeks invented the alphabet with vowels. And the first 2 Greek letters are alpha and beta. That's where you get the English word alphabet. So language or alphabet. What else did they contribute? Democracy.
Yeah.
Yep. Democracy, representation, political representation by elected officials.
Early medicine.
Some medicine, yes.
Hippocratic oath.
Hippocratic oath, yes. Yep. And trial by jury, was a Greek idea. These guys were amazing. They just contributed so much to what is just a part of the way that the West operates. So a lot of contributions there. Okay, let's shift over here. Let's focus on what is called the Via Egnatia, or the way of Ignatius or Egnatius. You can see in the top left corner, this road that runs east-west was named after this guy around the year 145 BC. This was a major thoroughfare that ran east and west through the southern portion of Greece or Macedonia and Thracia that you can see on the map there. Think about the Roman roads as the ancient internet. Here's why. The speed at which information traveled multiplied what seemed to be exponentially as soon as paved roads became available for people to walk on or ride on, whether it's on an animal or in a chariot. Prior to that, it was on foot, on dirt, on trails or paths, and it would rain, it'd get muddy, and it would be treacherous. But the Romans built these roads, the Roman roads, and it just sped up transportation, made it more reliable, and knowledge and information and commerce, trade, all those kind of things just exploded with growth. And so this was roadways back around 150 BC and up until past the time of Christ. This was cutting edge technology. This was just like almost like the Silicon Valley of the world, with these road systems and the travel that was able to just pick up so much. We read in the scriptures that when the fullness of time had come, Christ was born of a virgin, came into the world.
Mhm.
Part of that fullness of time was that God allowed the Greek language to be developed and the Roman road system to be established, because that was the way that the gospel was going to go out to the whole world, through this Roman road system in the Greek language. Anybody know the background of how Greek became the official language, essentially, of the world back in those days? Anybody know that story? Alexander the Great, who was a Greek, studied world languages and discovered that the Greek language was the most precise language known to man, mathematically precise. And he taught all of his troops the Greek language so that when he gave a command on a battlefield, his soldiers knew exactly what he wanted. There was no question, there was no doubt. It was just mathematically precise. Alexander, at the age of 32, conquered the world with his military genius and his tactical skills and so forth. And so God used that precise language to be the vehicle for communicating the gospel, because God wanted people to know exactly what he meant when spiritual truth was recorded for us. So that's part of the way that God sovereignly set up things in that part of the world in preparation for the gospel to go out to the rest of the world. All right, let's do this.
Dan,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
am not seeing the maps. All I have is axon location.
Okay, let's see. Hang on a second.
I have my notes, but I can't see it.
You don't see
None
that
of
on
us
the-
can see it. Yeah.
You don't see, okay, hang on a second. Let me back up. Let's see. I got this crazy mouse that I can't see what's saying. Let me try. Thank you for letting me know. I want to get this. What do you see?
Axon
Axon
location.
location.
Yeah, axon location, the topics, the itinerary, Bible study for session 5.
Okay, let me see if I can get this. I'm gonna, oh, hang on a second here. Not there yet?
Nope.
Hang on a second. Hmm. Not happening?
Nope.
No.
No, not yet.
That's weird. Okay. All right, hang on a second. Let's see.
There
Okay,
we go.
all right, well, let's try this again. And then now it says my screen sharing is paused again. I don't know why that is happening. Hang on a second. Let me try this one more time. Let's see. Okay, did that screen change?
No.
No.
Well, we
Hmm.
saw your whole presentation there for a second.
Yeah, this,
Yeah.
The left-hand side. Could
it's
we
weird
just,
because I can go to,
now we've got the itinerary.
yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm just gonna go down like this.
Yeah. Map.
Yeah.
Is that a little bit better?
Yeah.
I'm not sure why it's not working. I didn't check to upgrade my Zoom software, and that's what I get for doing that. All right, so there's the map that I was telling you about. So you can see, oh, and I can also highlight things. Here's Greece. We've talked a little bit about Israel. We're going to do Turkey the next time, and a little bit more Greece next time as well. And then we're going to finish up with Italy. Okay. All right. So here is the map that you have. Lynette, what is this about?
I'm just cracking up. I don't know. There's these little like video filters that you can put on. They're cracking me up.
You're bored, aren't
I
you?
like your mask.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
All right.
Okay, we got to keep an eye on Lynette.
Yeah, sorry.
All right. All right. You're the person that they warn us about. All right, so there's that map that we had talked about. Let's do this. Okay. You got that? You can see what we're talking about here? All right.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about day by day, what happens our first few days in Greece. So Tuesday, May 17, we're going to fly from Tel Aviv. We've already spent a few days in Israel. We're going to fly to Tel Aviv, or from Tel Aviv to Athens. Then we're going to catch a smaller plane. We're going to fly north up to Thessaloniki, which is the modern way of saying Thessalonica or Thessalonica. We'll get there in just in time to check into our hotel, and we're going to begin touring Greece the next morning. And then when we wake up after breakfast, we get on board the bus, and then we will head out to tour part of ancient Thessaloniki. Here's what I want to challenge you to do, or encourage you to do, remind you to do. When you get into your hotel, look for a Gideon Bible.
Oh,
We did, and we found this. This is the picture that we took of our Bible that we found in our hotel in Thessalonica. Anybody read Greek?
nope.
No.
The big capital letters is the first to the Thessalonians. So pros is the first word, but then you see the theta, the O with the line in the middle of it, the letter E, and the two sigmas, Thessaloniki, and then A is like the first letter for like the number one. So then you read there, Paul and Silvanus and Timothy to the church in Thessalonica, in God, the Father, and Christ Jesus, grace and peace from God our Father
The Lord
and our Lord
Christ.
Jesus Christ. So yeah, so I took a picture of Joanne reading Thessalonians in Thessalonica. which is
Hmm.
pretty cool. In Greek. She wasn't reading Greek, she was just looking at it. So,
Wow.
you know, all these little things kind of make it, I think, pretty neat. Okay. Here's one of the things that we're going to see in ancient Thessalonica. This is the marketplace, the ancient Roman marketplace in the old city of Thessalonica. You've got just a summary in your notes there of some of the things that occurred in the city of Thessalonica. I put that in there for you from Acts chapter 17, verses 1 through 15. So you can see how Paul traveled, how he got there, what happened when the Apostle Paul arrived in the city, what were the results of his ministry and his preaching there, and so forth. So we read in verse 5 that the Jews, becoming jealous and taking along some wicked men from the marketplace, formed a mob and set the city in an uproar. What you're looking at is where it occurred. So we will stand on location. We'll read the verse of scripture where it actually took place. And that's just a remarkable experience to be able to be on location. That's why we're calling it Acts on Location, to be standing where the event took place. Now, remember that a lot of these places that we're going to be visiting have layers of civilization built one on top of another. When we're in Jerusalem, we will show you ancient, back in the times of Christ, levels of where they lived. And then on top of that, the Roman city, which is pretty much the modern city right now. Here, what we're looking at is where the marketplace was in the book of Acts. But I want you to talk to me about the architecture. See if you can remember back to what we've talked about in the past. How old is this marketplace structure that you're looking at now? When was it built? Do you remember? But what do you see? Let's just talk about architectural features. What do you see? What's prominent in this photo?
Arches.
Arches made out of what?
Stone.
Stone.
Bricks, are they?
There's some stone. What else do you see?
Looks like bricks.
Bricks, terracotta bricks.
Mm.
Okay. They're thin
Mhm.
terracotta, which is classic construction right around the 4th century. This is about the time that Constantine the Great
Mhm.
was in power. The building and the construction, you know, for hundreds of years had been going on. But Constantine, under his leadership, there was an explosion of growth. Now, this is the marketplace. This is the public square. So some of these structures that we're seeing here were not in place when the book of Acts took place. Where are the structures from the book of Acts? Down below,
Mhm.
at a lower level,
Underneath.
okay?
Mhm.
This is newer construction built on top, or maybe it is just actually replaced. Our guide will give us the specifics on this. So, but you can see to the left there, that stone pathway,
Mhm.
that's probably before the time of Christ. But some of this construction is newer. You can tell by the building materials. But these stones that are here, if it had been later, these stones would not be all, you know, in rough shapes like this. It would have been square. It would have been, you know, very much lined up and even, you know, not in a jagged form like this. Okay, so it's a part of what we're going to see when we get to Thessalonica, looking around Thessalonica. Here's another angle of the same marketplace. Notice the terracotta construction on the right-hand side, and back as well, the thin layers of stone that are stacked. That's not 1st century construction technique. That's more like 4th century, a few hundred years later. Notice the columns and the base for the columns down the middle of the road there. What can you tell me about the column that you see standing?
Mm,
Is it a new or an old column, ancient or relatively modern, so to speak? Look at the capital. Do you see the structure on the very top there, the capital? What kind of a capital is that? It's either going to be Doric, Ionic, or Corinthian. It's Corinthian. It's very ornate. There's a lot of detail. I don't know if you can see it very closely, but there's a lot of detail. Here's the way we remember these pillars and the capital on top. Doric is 2 symbols, Ionic or 2 syllables. Ionic is 3 syllables. Corinthian is 4 syllables. So Doric is very plain. Ionic is a bit scrolled, like a parchment scroll. Corinthian is very complex, all carved by hand, and it's relatively new. And this is going to be from 1st century and later, probably much later, looking at how complex the Corinthian capital is. So our guide will point out these things to us and show us some of these details and explain to us about the construction of the marketplace and so forth. Down on the bottom right hand image there is what's called the Polytarch inscription. It is now at the British Museum. When we read in Acts chapter 17, verse 6, they began dragging Jason and some brethren before the city authorities. That word authorities is literally in the Greek language Polytarch. So you see that from the ancient inscriptions, not necessarily the same people in Acts 17 who did this, but what you see is the cultural connection, that vocabulary used in Thessalonica. There's archaeological evidence to show that, yep, this is a vocabulary that they used. This is what was known as something that was particular about this particular city. And there are antiquities that reinforce these comments that are found in the scriptures about things that happen in different locations. All right, there'll be more that we're going to see in Thessalonica. We'll let our guide take us through the city and show us what we're going to be looking at there. Then, when we're done with Thessaloniki or Thessalonica, we're going to get on the bus and we're going to travel east. We're going to follow the Via Egnatia. But we're going to travel the opposite direction of the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul traveled from east to west. We're going to travel from west to east. We're going to go from Thessaloniki to Amphipolis. You saw in your notes the name of Thessaloniki and how and why and who named the city. Be sure to review that. And this will also be in your site guide that I'll provide for you before we travel. Quite a few of these notes, so you know why the city was named what it was. Who can tell us about this city of Amphipolis? What does Amphipolis mean? In your notes, anybody remember? Okay, 2 words. It's a combination. Polis means city, like the Acropolis. Acra means upper or top, so an Acropolis is the upper city. A metropolis is a large city. Amphipolis, amphi means all the way around. Like a theater is a half circle theater, an amphitheater is a full circle. So Amphipolis means around the city. Now, why was it called around the city? Because I'll show you this real quick. There was a river that went around the city. So they named this place around the city because a river was flowing around the city. I jumped ahead. Let me back up just a little bit here, okay? And then we'll clarify if we need to. Okay, this is the ancient Via Egnatia. This is the Roman road. And it's still visible. We'll see this little bits and pieces of this road all the time. This is 2,000 years old. And these ancient roads are still there. You can still walk them if you want to. And so we will see also in some of the places that we visit. This is in Philippi. There's this stone marker. And on the bottom, you can see that it says Via Egnatia. It's in English. But if you look at up above, it's in Greek. Egnatia Hadas, which means the way or the road of Egnatia. So these road markers, this is not ancient, this is new, but it just shows you what you're looking at. So when you see a place like this, there'll be some indicators every now and then that you know that you're looking over right on the main road of the Via Egnatia. This is what the ancient one looked like. Here's what the modern one looks like. It's a freeway. Freeway. Yeah. So you see there, Route 59, that's going to Amphipolis or Amphipolis. That's what the next stop is going to be on our itinerary. So if you look at some of these signs, you'll see them in the English transliteration. Kavala is Neapolis. We're going to look at Neapolis in just a minute. Neapolis, there's that word polis at the end of it. But Nea or Neo means new. So Neapolis is a new city, at least in ancient times. You've got neo-orthodoxy, which is new orthodoxy, neo-paganism or neo-Nazis. So that Greek prefix is used even in English languages. So keep your eyes peeled when we're driving along. You'll see not only Greek signs, but you see a lot of it is in English. You'll see the same thing in Israel as well. It'll be Hebrew, and you'll see Arabic, and you'll see English. Okay, back here to Amphipolis. We've got this river that runs around the city. There's only one thing to see at this place, and it's this lion. But we're going to go stop and see it. Notice what it says here before. It's a funerary monument of Laomedon, a naval officer of Alexander the Great. Notice this. This monument was already 350 years old when the Apostle Paul saw it. So Paul, when he went through this town, he saw this lion, and we'll see it as well. It's kind of amazing to realize that the structure is still in place.
Is that guy buried there?
They're not sure. Some think the question was, is he buried there? He very well could be. Some think that it's actually Alexander the Great's mother, but they attributed it to somebody else so that it wouldn't break into the place and steal her corpse and hold it for ransom or something. So, but regardless, we know that it was built under the order of Alexander the Great, and it's been there for, almost, a couple thousand years. It was built around 350 BC. It's an ancient structure. So notice on the map, you have in red there the Acropolis. That's the upper city. It's up on a hill. To the right and up above to the right, you have the Necropolis. That's a cemetery. It's the city of the dead, is what Necropolis means. So ancient city there. Okay. Let's move forward here just a little bit. Let me scroll down so I know where we're going. All right. After Amphipolis, we're going to get on the bus again, and we're going to head east a little bit more on the Via Egnatia. Then we're going to go to Philippi. And in the scriptures, Philippi is described as a leading city in Macedonia, and it's a Roman colony. You have that information in your notes about when the city was built, who built it or renamed it, and why. All that background information about the city of Philippi is there for you. Here is a map of the ancient city of Philippi. Notice on the top, there's the Acropolis that's up on the top of a hill. We'll be able to look up and you'll see ancient structures on top of this hill. And we won't have time to climb it, which is wonderful because it's quite a hike. But you see to the right, the Neapolis gate, the new city gate. That's the gate. If you head out on that road, you're going to go to Neapolis or Kavala, which you saw on the roadside recently. We will see and we will visit in the ancient city, the cistern or the place that many say is where the Apostle Paul was imprisoned in Philippi. We will also see the forum that's going to come up in just a moment. We're going to see the ancient theater. I'll show you pictures of all these in just a little bit. And when I provide for you the site guide, which is just like a little flip chart for all these locations we're going to visit, you will also have in there this map so that you can kind of orient yourself where we are in the city on location when our guide is talking to us about what's happening, what's going on in the place. I want you to note also the red letter X on that map. Can you see that there? That's the angle from which this photo was taken. So here's our group, part of our group, looking at the marketplace in ancient Philippi. See, it's just in ruins. It's either come down because of earthquakes or because of marauding armies or both. All of the columns would have fallen, but some of them were put back up just to give you a perspective of what it would look like when all the columns were put up. In the background is the reconstruction a little bit of ancient, but not first century structures. You'll see photos of that in just a moment. But notice in Acts chapter 16, verse 19, they seized Paul and Silas and dragged them into the marketplace before the authorities. Sounds just like what happened at Thessalonica. It happened often, but here it happens in Philippi. And so we will see the marketplace where that event took place. And we will see several other sites there in Philippi. So it's a view of the forum, and the agora is the word for that's translated marketplace. It's where we get the word agoraphobia. Have you heard of that word? It's a fear of, do you know what it's a fear of?
Shopping.
Open spaces. Open spaces, Katrina, yeah. Okay, because the marketplace was an open place where people would go do their shopping, do their visiting. The apostle would always, whenever he came to a new town, would always go into the marketplace and just kind of mingle with the people and just find out, you know, what's the buzz on the street? What are people talking about? What matters to these people? He'd want to get a feel for the culture and what's on the minds of the people. What kind of questions are they asking? What kind of issues are, you know, out there that he wanted to address? And he was quite effective in the way that he did his ministry by studying the culture. And there was never two methods of ministry that Paul repeated in any two different places. It was always unique to the culture that he visited. So this is where Paul went, just mingled with people. He started his preaching ministry, started doing some work there, and the people were revolted. They didn't like that. And he was thrown into prison or into a jail. And this is probably not the jail, but they say it's the jail. So you've got something that you can photograph. Our guide will explain to us that this structure is not in the right place where a jail would typically be in a Roman city or a Roman town. But regardless, you get the idea that it very well could be the size or maybe even larger than a standard jail cell. But we do know for sure that he was the apostle, Paul and Silas. See this, they were praying and singing hymns of praise to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. Of course, we know that the Philippian jailer was converted, he and his household, and they were baptized. And so we're going to show you in just a moment where some of that took place. So you'll see this, take pictures, and we'll talk to our guide about this particular structure. What I want you to do as we're just you'll have free time just to roam, just to walk through ancient Philippi. Just look around. You'll see, anybody know what language this is? This inscription, this is Greek. It's ancient Greek. And you can see you can see a couple of deltas and a couple of alphas. And the circles, those are omicrons. We know that word, omicron. Yeah. So in fact, we were pet sitting for my son and his wife and their two girls this last week. And our granddaughter has a pet hamster named Amma, but
Oh,
I
no.
named it Omicron. It's just a domesticated rodent. I didn't want to touch it. But just look around. You'll see a lot of fascinating things just everywhere.
Hmm.
Here's the theater, ancient theater. And there's indications you can see there, the first and the second level, but there's also indications in the back of a third level. So it's very high. They estimate that the theaters were designed to hold 10% of the city's population. So if you got a theater that holds 20,000 people, you're talking about this, and I'm not sure how many this particular theater would hold, but if a theater could hold 20,000 people, the city was probably 200,000 in size. Or if a theater held 5,000, the city was probably 50,000 in size. So 10% of the population. You can see to the left some reconstruction, some new construction of what the ancient structures would have looked like. So those are brand new. They just wanted to give you a visual of what it looked like when it was new and when it was brand new. Because you got to remember these, the Apostle Paul was in this theater. He visited this place. So we'll read some scripture from this location. It's another view of the same structure, but what I want you to notice is in the foreground, 4 columns, and there are images, reliefs that are carved into the stone, different Greek gods and goddesses. There is on the top left there of the left column, it looks like a big vessel, probably that would hold wine, intended to hold wine. What else do you see when you look at the foreground? You see the red terracotta tiles?
Mhm.
Okay. So this part of the structure was not there when the Apostle Paul was in Philippi. This was built later as the city continued to grow and expand. So you're looking at layers or different eras of history. It was not all built at once. This structure was built over the span of hundreds and hundreds of years. 400, 500, 600 years. Our nation has not been around that long. So we're just like the new kid on the block here in terms of, ancient cities and antiquities and those kinds of things. In Philippi, you will see evidence of the church. These are not from biblical times, but this goes back to the time when Constantine was the emperor in Rome, as was brought up earlier. There was quite a strong church in Philippi, and you'll see crosses, and we'll see churches, ancient ruins of churches in several places throughout our tour. But you can see these, these like, the one on the left, that's carved into marble or stone, by hand. There were no power tools, no electric tools. And this column, our guide will tell us how the columns were made. But what I want you to notice is that that cross was not put on top of the column. The column itself was turned and shaped into, a round, long cylinder. And then they went back and carved away everything that was not the cross, so that the cross would be raised on that column. That took a lot of work,
Mhm.
but they wanted a cross on that column, and they did whatever it took in order to make that column look that way. So it's just remarkable. I have no idea how long it took them to do that, but it wasn't something you do over a weekend.
Oh,
It would take a long time. It's a big project. And there's a capital on top of that column. What kind of capital is that?
Corinthian.
Corinthian capital. Yes. Very good. Very ornate, not simple. Again, hand carved, very complex. So now take a look at this. What do you see?
Corinthian capitals.
Corinthian capitals. Good. Little different style than the previous one. You see how that one's got these little corners that jet out here? This one, they're a little bit different, but notice how ornate, detailed. You see arches.
Mhm.
Okay. Do you see the red terracotta tiles to the left?
Yes.
Okay. This, I believe, is a church. Our guide will tell us what this structure used to be, but I think it used to be a church, if I remember correctly. She will, or he, well, I've only had female guides in Greece. They'll walk through all these details for us. Now look through the columns. Do you see on the top of the hill? Do you see that little box on the left there?
yep.
That's the Acropolis. That's the upper city. Usually it would be a temple to the Greek or to the Roman gods on the highest place in the region. In the Old Testament, we read about the high places. It'd be on top of a hill, top of a mountain, the highest place where the altars to the false gods were often put.
Right.
This is, you see in the foreground, there's an ancient cemetery. And in the background is a church. It's not an old church, but it commemorates and locates actually a biblical event that occurred
Oh.
in the book of Acts. If we want to take a shot at what it commemorates or locates for us, Lydia's baptism. Lydia used to live in Philippi, or at least she did some work there. She was the first European convert to Christianity. It was a woman. The Apostle Paul came to Philippi. He would typically look for a synagogue where he could go in and teach and start talking about Jesus. But there was no synagogue in Philippi. Does anybody know why there was no synagogue in Philippi?
There was no church.
What's that again?
There was no church. I mean, there weren't believers there.
Not yet. Paul went there to see if he could find some, create some, and Lydia was the first one. But Paul, being Jewish, was going to look for a synagogue and talk about Jesus to see if people would be converted. But there's two reasons there were no synagogues in Philippi. First of all, remember, we learned that we saw that it was a leading Roman city. Romans weren't Jews. Paul was. It was very rare. That's why when he was often beaten, he would say, "Do you realize I'm a Roman citizen and a Jew?" Which is really kind of rare. So that's one reason, is because it's a Roman community. And the other was culturally, a synagogue could not be built or occupied in a city unless there were 5 Jewish men.
Yeah.
And in Philippi, there weren't even 5 Jewish men. But what we do read about is Paul suspected that there would be a place of prayer. If you can't have a synagogue in the city, then the Jews would meet outside the city at what they call a place of prayer. And it was traditional for them to meet at a river. Shall we gather at the river? So they did baptisms, conversions, not only for Jews becoming Christians, but non-Jews becoming Jews, non-Jews converting to Judaism, they would baptize them. And they would often do that in the river. Paul went to the river. He met Lydia, shared the gospel with her. She was converted. She was baptized. This church marks the place where this occurred.
Hmm.
And if you can see the structure of the building, can you see that there's an indication there that it's octagon shaped?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember why the churches are built in octagon shapes? Because there are 8 Beatitudes
Yeah.
out of Matthew 5 through 7.
Hmm.
So the churches are often built in an octagon shape.
And there's also a really nice little gift shop there. I bought a bracelet with
Yes.
shells where where they would get the purple dye
We're gonna
from.
look at that in just a
Oh,
second.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Joanne's spiritual gift is shopping.
Nice gift shop, but it has since it's broken. So, but
Oh,
anyway,
we'll get it replaced.
okay. We're repaired.
So we'll go inside and look at the building. The icons are beautiful.
Mm.
The reason icons are everywhere, we're going to see the Sistine Chapel also in Rome.
And I have a question.
Yeah, please ask.
Did you say that the Jewish people were baptized?
When non-Jews were converted to Judaism, they were baptized. So let's say I was living back in biblical times and I'm not Jewish, but I want to worship the Jewish God. How do I demonstrate my conversion to Judaism? I would be
Well, they
baptized.
Be circumcised?
No, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but some were, but also they would baptize those who were converted. So here's the thing. This is why when John was baptizing, remember John the Baptist? The Jews
Right.
knew what he was doing. He didn't come up with baptism. It was already a rite that was being practiced by the Jews for the unrighteous to be converted to righteousness. But it only could be done by the Jewish authorities who had been, or those who had been sanctioned by the Jewish authorities. And so these Pharisees are coming out there saying, John, what are you doing? Who gave you the authority to do this? And even Jesus did some baptizing. He baptized a few people. And there was a big controversy about this because, wait a minute, you're not preaching what we teach as Jews. Why are you baptizing people? That's something only that we do. But it also became something that the Christians do when people converted out of Judaism into Christianity, because it made sense. They knew in their culture, this is how you demonstrate your commitment to this faith, was baptism. Let me challenge you with this. And I'm not going to go too far. I just want you to think about this. I'm going to challenge you to find a Gentile, a non-Jew in the New Testament that was baptized. What you will find are Jews who were baptized when they became Christians. I think there's only one example of a non-Jew who was baptized, and that's the Philippian jailer.
Oh.
Everybody else, every other record of baptism is a Jew converting to Christianity. Now, that doesn't mean that non-Jews were not baptized, but it's the culture of the day. So yes, back to your question, those who were not Jewish, when they started worshiping the God of Israel, they were called a God-fearer, like Cornelius in Caesarea Maritima. Cornelius and his household were baptized when they became Christians, but they were also baptized. We don't have the record of it, but we know that culturally they did this. When Cornelius said, I want to worship the God of Israel, they said, then it's time for you to be baptized. And they baptized him into the faith as a God-fearer, a non-Jew who is practicing Judaism. Does that help? Does that make sense for you, Alice?
Yeah, that helps.
Okay, it's a little different. Maybe if it's not,
Yeah.
if it's new to you, maybe it takes a little bit of time to absorb that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. 'Cause my question then is, we get baptized, it shows the death, burial, resurrection of Christ. But
Yes.
the Jews,
Right.
non-Jews becoming Jews, what did that signify?
Washing, being purified, your sins being washed away. And that's why Peter said, be baptized for the remission of your sins, because he's speaking Jewish cultural language, but he had already proclaimed that it was the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus that saves you. And if that's true, then you be baptized to show that your sins have been cleansed, not by the water, but by Jesus. So Peter made a distinction for the first time in his preaching, which separated the Jewish practice of baptism and the Christian practice of baptism, because Jewish baptism was the means of converting, but Christian baptism was the means of demonstrating that you've already been converted.
Mhm.
Okay? Yeah, we're going to see where that happened. We're going to be on location there where Acts chapter 2 took place, and maybe that'll come up. And we'll show you where those people were baptized. You can
Good.
see that. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So these icons, are we good, Alice? We got that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're
Thank
here to answer questions. That's why we're doing this. The icons were very popular and very necessary because most people back in the day could not read. Most people did not have access to the scriptures. So they relied on pictures. They relied on stories. They relied on images. And each one of these images tells a story. And when we go through the Sistine Chapel, especially, our guide will walk us through the Old Testament by showing us the picture, starting with creation, where the very iconic image of God touching Adam and creating him. That's in the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. And then you can see the whole story of the Old Testament and into the New Testament painted, because in the day, nobody could read. Nobody had Bibles. So they would come into this building here, although it's a relatively new building, I think built in the 70s. But the style and the history and the culture is very much ancient in terms of the icons that are being shown and displayed. And there's symbolism behind all the icons. Our guide will walk us through what a lot of these images mean and what they're communicating. So here's the river. This is where Lydia was baptized. And so it's just a kind of a small little river or a large stream, not a lot of water going through it. It looks like there is, but that's because of the way that I took the photo. And it could be kind of dangerous to baptize. I'd rather fish here than baptize here. But there is a baptistry that's been made available, and that's the water being channeled in from the river, and it passes through and goes back into the river again. But you can see a little chapel area in the background. You can see a spot where it's easier to step down into the water. Somebody can be baptized in the river. Water's just been diverted, but it's much safer to do that. So this is the location that shows where Lydia was converted and where she was baptized. And on this trip, we had a family that was going to have a couple of children baptized here. They have changed their travel plans and won't be traveling with us. But if any of you would like to be baptized here in this freezing cold water, I will license Paul Maxwell to do that. Paul would be happy to baptize you in this freezing cold water because he's just that kind of guy. Right, Paul? Are you still here? Or did you cancel your trip? All right. Here's what Joanne was talking about. We read in Acts 16:14, Lydia from the city of Thyatira was a seller of purple fabrics. So she was on a business trip visiting Philippi, meeting with some Jewish women for prayer. And the Apostle Paul met them. He shared Christ with them. And the scripture says that God opened her heart and she received Christ as her Savior, and the first convert to Christianity from Europe, which is remarkable. Now, so here's these little seashells They're not that large. They're rather small. And from the creatures, these guys were edible. People would eat them, but they would, more importantly, extract from these little mollusks, these little creatures living inside of here, their defense mechanism. Like an octopus or a squid will squirt out ink to cloud itself or to distract an enemy. These little guys would just shoot out a little squirt of ink that would stun or confuse any kind of prey. And so the people that would create these purple fabrics would get that ink from these seashells, these little animals that live inside the seashells. It was incredibly tedious. It would take, I was reading recently that just to dye the hem of a garment would take 50,000 shells
Oh, my.
to get enough dye to do that. So this process was unbelievably tedious. It would take 500 or 600 of these shells to get one drop of solid dye. There was a process. They knew these little creatures inside and out, and they knew how to extract just the tiniest little amount from tens of thousands of these things to get enough dye to take care of one garment. Now, this is where we get the idea of royal blue, because only royalty can afford something like this. So purple, royal blue, these colors of royalty, was unbelievably expensive. So Lydia sold the fabric that was purple. She was probably very wealthy because there's a markup on everything, and she's selling these garments to only people that had a boatload of money. Very luxurious items. And as Joanne mentioned, there's a gift shop there, and she bought did you find your bracelet? Did you go look for
No,
it?
yeah, I did.
Yeah, I'll have to replace it. Anyway, she had a bracelet made from these little shells, and kind of a fun souvenir from Philippi. We'll have to, this is why we're going back on the trip. This is the whole point of the whole trip. It's to replace Joanne's bracelet. I'll do just about anything for her. All right, any
Dan, do
questions?
these creatures live in the river?
In the Mediterranean Sea, good question.
Oh,
These are
okay.
saltwater
Yeah.
animals. And so all along the Mediterranean, along the shore where the water's shallow, they could just go down and extract, and then they have to put the thing right back into the water so that it would stay alive. And they could go back and harvest more later. They couldn't scoop them up and bring them into shore and work on them and then bring them back later because they're all going to die real quickly.
Yeah.
So they had to work on the shore. There would be hundreds, if not thousands of people doing this at once.
Mm.
And, you know, everybody, they were either slaves, they're probably most likely slaves, just doing this for their owners, their masters. And yeah, incredibly tedious. So great question. Yeah, didn't come from the river, came from the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
And Philippi, as we're going to see in just a moment, was pretty close to the Mediterranean. In fact, let's take a look at this slide. Let's talk about this.
Because those little seashells are not found in that river. They're found
No,
in the Mediterranean.
they're
But she was
found in
just
the
a
Right.
seller of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she just
So,
sold the fabrics,
To Phil.
the final product. Yeah, probably doing business all along the coast here. So what I want you to notice is that Philippi, Neapolis, and Thessaloniki is on the water as well. These are all port cities because trade and commerce, why these cities were large. People would travel all over the world. They bring their goods, they bring them into these port cities. And that's where Paul wanted to bring the gospel, was to places like Seattle, Tacoma, Long Beach, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, Miami, all these coastal cities where there was a lot of traffic. He was strategic in where he went. He just didn't go randomly to some places. He went to the hub of culture, the hub of society. Philippi was incredibly strategic because it was it was a major city. You know, it was a Roman community, and he wanted to get the gospel eventually into Rome, which happened. And we'll see the fruit of that when we're in Rome. Okay, so Philippi, and then we're going to go to Neapolis, which means new city.
New. Yeah.
Neapolis. So we're going to get on the Via Egnatia once again, this same road. It's bigger and paved, but the same route that the apostle went to. And we're going to drive down to and through Neapolis. There's nothing ancient to see in Neapolis, but it's on the road, it's on the route. So we're going to go. This is what Neapolis looks like.
Ooh.
Very modern. You see the port here? It's a port city. Where these
Yeah.
ships are located is where Paul came in. So, and others did throughout history. And so these buildings here, of course, are modern, built right on top of the ancient ruins. In fact, let's see, in Thessaloniki, that marketplace, I didn't mention it when we looked at it. The marketplace was discovered accidentally. People knew there was an ancient marketplace there. They didn't know where it was. We'll see it when we'll hear the story when we get there. But I think it was a shopping center was being bulldozed and cleared out to put up an apartment complex. And as they were excavating, they accidentally discovered this ancient Roman marketplace. And so then they, did the excavations and they marked it as a World Heritage Site. And now it's a tourist, place to see. But in this part of the world, that kind of stuff happens all the time. You might see or hear on the news that I just saw on the news last week, a 10-year-old walking through Israel found an ancient golden coin back to the time of Christ, just sitting there on the ground. And this happens all the time. People stumble across antiquities. One of the cities that we will not be visiting on this trip is in Israel, Beit Shan. It's a major Roman city, one of the Decapolis, one of the 10 cities of Rome in the Middle East there. Discovered accidentally because a guy was digging his garden in his backyard and he found a Roman column. And they began to excavate and they found this massive city.
And the
Wow.
And theater and fountains and bathhouses and military compounds and just unbelievable. Stumbled across it accidentally. So it's just like, it's like a barn find. Somebody buys an old house and they find this ancient car that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. That happened again last week. I just read about it that as well. Okay, I get distracted when I talk about old cars. All right, so Neapolis, that's really all there is to see in this city. We're just going to drive through it because you can then say, I've been to Neapolis, one of the places that Paul went to on his trip. Then get on the bus and drive quite a bit to the west, back to our hotel in Thessaloniki. We will have been pretty much recovered from the big time gap, the big jet lag issue, but you're going to be tired. You're going to want to get back to the hotel. You'll probably sleep on the bus on the way back. But when we get to the hotel, you can go up on the roof. You can enjoy the pool. You can enjoy the view of the Mediterranean, and hopefully it's going to be nice and warm, and you can just chill and just watch the sunset over the Mediterranean. These are just unbelievable moments, and we build in enough time for you to be able to get back and enjoy things like this, because it's just a super nice experience. So our travel company gets us good hotels, and they want us to have a great time when we're traveling. All right, we're going to speed it up here just a little bit so that we don't spend the rest of the day talking about this. The next morning, we get up, get on the bus, and head west. I'm going to talk with the guide to see about whether or not we're going to have the time to go to a place called Berea. You've heard about the Bereans? More noble than those in Thessalonica, because they checked the scriptures daily to see whether or not the Apostle Paul was cutting it straight. He was accurate in his Bible teaching. And there's the verse, Acts chapter 17, verse 11. This is the only thing to see in Berea. There's nothing else. It's a relatively new, modern, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not, it's a structure, yeah, and it's all done in mosaic. There's a word I'm looking for that it's not in my brain right now, but it just commemorates the idea that Paul was in Berea, he had a ministry in Berea, and it takes a while to get there and it takes a while to leave. Me personally, the only value in going to Berea is to say that you've been there. Otherwise, we stand in front, we take our picture, we get on the bus, and we go. Mural, there's my word, okay? It's a mural. And it shows the apostle coming to the European continent and his ministry there in Berea. So on the left, arriving in Europe, on the right, his ministry in Berea. Okay, we get on the bus. We will have enjoyed our chocolate by that time. If anybody is late getting onto the bus, Paul. And then we head out to a place that is on the itinerary for sure. It's not a biblical location, but if you're in this part of the world, you don't want to miss it. It's called Matera or Meteora. You can call it Meteora if that's easier for you. But Matera, this place is fantastic. There are these stone columns coming up out of the ground, and there are monasteries and old buildings built on top of these stone columns. They're all over the place. It's a very unique geographical landmark, these structures, these landforms, and they would climb up. This is before elevators, before drones, before helicopters, before anything. They would climb up this stone structure, throw down a rope, and then hoist up the bricks, hoist up the stones, hoist up the mortar and the tiles, and they would build these monasteries, and they are fantastic. Isn't that incredible? So this one, I think, is St. Stephen Monastery, which we will visit. We'll go inside. We'll have a chance to see this place. It's just fantastic.
How do we get up there?
See the little bridge? There's a little bridge right here. There's a parking lot down here. So this bridge is new. We can take the bridge, and then there'll be some stairs we can walk up. There might even be an elevator, but it's a lot easier than what it used to be. We're not going to hoist you up on a rope or anything like that. At least, if you don't want to. So you see a couple of structures here off into the right, down here into the left. Here's a panoramic. Oops, let me back up. Oh, that's not going to work. That's okay. Anyway, just, there's a lot of eye candy, so to speak. It just visually, it's just stunning. And you're going to love this place. It's pretty amazing. Not a biblical site, but you want to see it. And there are notes that talk about how did these stone structures form? What caused them to show up? And I won't take the time to look at that with you. You can read that on your own. Then at the end of the day, we're going to go from Matera. We're going to drive all the way down to Athens. And I have asked our guide to get us into Athens early enough that you can do what we call retail therapy. Okay, you can do some shopping for souvenirs. I'm going to recommend, we'll make sure that a couple of people are assigned to bring travel games. This is the Scrabble game that we bring sometimes, because you got like a 4-hour bus ride. And so if you can do something to keep your brain awake and alive, that's always a lot of fun. So they have a travel version of Settlers of Catan, in case anybody wants to lose to me playing Settlers of Catan. That's a challenge to anybody who might want to do it, or Scrabble or whatever it might be. So we'll bring travel games, and it'll be a lot of fun. Here's our hotel in Athens. This is up on the rooftop again, little outdoor cafe. Stunning view of the Acropolis, the upper city, with the ancient temple to Athena and to others as well. We'll go up into the Acropolis after the cruise when we come back to Athens. But I'm going to try to get us back in time so that you can just walk from the hotel a couple blocks away to a place called the Plaka, Plak or Plaka. It's an outdoor shopping center, world famous, tons of fun. You name it, they've got it. It's just a lot of fun to shop there and grab some souvenirs from Greece. So everywhere we go is safe. The last thing any company or any country that relies on tourism wants is for a tourist to get hurt. And so people watch out for each other. The shopkeepers, the shop owners know what's safe and what's not. Same with the hotels, the tour guide, travel company, and all that. So we want you to have a great experience in the Plaka. Do you see this down here? So
Yeah, but just a note of that, my nephew had $100 bill taken out of his front jean pocket.
Yeah.
The pickpocketers, they're professionals. So I wear like a waistband wallet with a zipper in it underneath my clothes, you know, with my passport and major dollars.
yeah, that's all in that document. I'll send one to Lynette, whoever wants it, on how to travel internationally. We go over all those security matters, because you put something in your pocket, it is not safe. I've had cell phone stolen. My son-in-law, his little watch pocket on Levi's, his jeans, you know, that little bitty pocket next to your right pocket. They used to be where you'd put a pocket watch. He had $100 bill in there and somebody took it. And he didn't know it. You guys are good. So,
Wow.
yeah. All right, so here's a little shop, a little market, and there's lots of restaurants where you can go grab a bite if you want to, you know, enjoy it. It's fantastic. All right. Just real quick, I think this is our last stop, is Mykonos. Thursday, May 1, we get up in the morning, we go to the cruise ship, we do a quick test, we get on board, we're assigned our staterooms on the ship, and then we go through security measures, how to put on a life jacket, what to do if there's a problem on board, those kinds of things. Yeah. And then we set sail and we head out. Our first port of call is Mykonos, this little coffee cup here.
How big is the ship? How many people?
It'll hold a couple of thousand. I'll show you. Well, here's a picture of it right here.
Oh.
So that's Athens in the background. So this is leaving Athens. So Celestial Cruises is a cruise line that we're on. And you can see there's a couple of swimming pools on the upper deck. And on the forward deck and on the rear deck, you know, you can go out there and sunbathe and just sit out in the sun and just take it in. Yeah.
I mean,
Now you-
there's,
okay.
it's not the huge ships.
Yeah,
that
it's
you
not the
see.
20 stories high.
No, this is just a nice size ship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can go to, I think there's a link in your notes you can go to the Celestial Cruises website and just look through the ship. You can see what's there. You can look at the restaurants, the kind of food that's available. And if you've not cruised, it'll change your life. It's just an amazing experience. It's a lot of fun. So I think that you'll really enjoy it. So get on board, we head out to sea. Here's one of the decks, you know, just sit out there and just enjoy. I mean, you're on the Mediterranean. It doesn't get any better than that. We go to Mykonos. So this looks like a Greek island, right? You got all these white buildings. You got an occasional dome building, which would be a church. You got the little beach and the promenade out there in front, or the little boardwalk, if you want to use that. You know, a few boats and things. In the background, you can see these are the iconic, world famous windmills that are on the Starbucks mug there. Yeah, and we'll have plenty of time just to roam, just to walk through the village, just go where you want to go. Grab a bite to eat, buy some souvenirs, go up to the windmills and take a look. There's a view from a different angle.
Wow.
And it can be chilly, windy and chilly.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
jacket, yeah.
It's on how to travel internationally. All that information is there about layers.
Yeah.
You want to bring layers of clothing so that you can, take it down or put it on if you want to. But you see a lot of blue and white. That's the color of the Greek flag. And just a beautiful, beautiful area.
Mm. Wow.
Like the thatched roofs on it.
Why do they still do that? I mean, is that just for like aesthetic purposes
The
or?
people can take pictures of it. I don't know. I don't think they're functional anymore, Lynette. I think it's just more of their culture, more of their history. And it's, just iconic and very, just, pretty amazing, pretty cool. They still might be functional. I'm not sure. We'll find out. Or you can Google it,
Food man.
What's that, Paul? No? Okay. So here's Joanne on the left there, exercising her gift, shopping. But you can see the streets, the stone streets, the whitewashed buildings, the blue trim everywhere. And again, any place on this island is safe if you stay where the tourists are. You get out by yourself beyond the city and it can be, maybe be dangerous. So just stay with 1 or 2 or 3 people, walk around, take your time, visit. There's churches, you can walk inside and take a look, shops, villages, or little cafes, whatever it might be. Yeah.
It looks so
just
clean.
Look around, okay? You don't know what you're gonna find out. I found this guy, he's drawing octopus on his sailboat. So you'll see the octopus all over the place. It's one of the foods that they often eat with the Mediterranean diet, of course, being right there on the Mediterranean Sea. All right, that's what I've got for today. Next time, March 6th, we're going to take a look at Ephesus, fabulous city. It was second or third largest city in the world when the Apostle Paul visited there, about the size of Tacoma, about 250,000 people in the city, huge city. We're going to talk about Patmos, the island where John wrote the book of Revelation. We're going to look at Crete, where the Apostle Paul went to Fair Havens when he was sailing on his way to Rome. We're going to look at Santorini, not a biblical site, but if you're going to go to the Greek islands, that's the island to go to. It's amazing. And then just a little bit about a place called Cenchrea back on Greece on the mainland, just before we get to Corinth. So we'll take a look at that and what happened there. Before we wrap it up, ask your questions, make your comments, and let's see if we can help you out with anything tonight before we finish up. Anybody? Questions, comments, observations?
Comment. It said we were going to depart on the cruise on May 1st. I don't think that's right.
Okay, it might not be. Not if we're leaving Seattle on May 13th. It's
May 20th, Mediterranean cruise.
Yeah, May 20. Thanks, Sherry. Nice catch. Yep, May 20. And did I mention to you, or did I write to you that we made a change in the itinerary? We're not going to go to Joppa. We're going to stay in Jerusalem and do the Garden Tomb. Okay, good. Other questions? Anybody?
No question, but I'm really excited about going.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be epic. Yeah. So we will, when we get a little bit closer, we really have just 2 more Bible studies and then another month before we take off. We will make sure that you are up to speed on everything that you need to know. We'll keep you detailed, keep the details in front of you. You're going to be hearing back from the travel company pretty soon, and they will send you a packet of information. They have your name tag, your name badge. It'll give you travel documents in terms of your flight reservations, all the details that you need to know. And we'll make sure that we walk through all of that together. We're still, what, 96 days away? Is that right? Yep, 96 days.
Mm.
And then it seems like the time is rapidly approaching, and we're going to have a blast. Okay. All right. Hey, thanks for joining us. It was good to see all of you. Are we done? Okay. We will see you
Next month.
next month. That sounds great. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Adios. Stay out of trouble.